Oh, we did? Did he give me one? Okay.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming. It is 6:30, so we are going to start. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1B, approval of the agenda.
I move that the agenda for the January 9th, 2023 regular meeting be approved.
I move to add.
Okay, one second, sorry. Final motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Is there any discussion? So now go ahead. Mr. Gillespie.
Yeah, I move to add to the agenda the elimination of bylaws 1673 B and C.
Second.
Sorry, Mr. Gillespie, what was the motion again? To remove?
Yeah, I move to add to the agenda the elimination of bylaws 1673 B and C.
And I second.
3B. Motion by Mr. Gogolewski, seconded by Ms. Blondeel. No, that's a motion to add a discussion item. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Gogolewski? Motion to add a discussion item.
It would be helpful probably for the public to know what
Correct.
those two bylaws are.
Yeah, so what is, Mr. Gogolewski, if you would like to let the public know, what is item 167B, 1673B and C?
Yeah, absolutely. The 1673 B and C deals with attendees who must register their intention to participate in the public participation portion of the meeting prior to the start of the meetings. And individuals may not register others to speak during public participation, which would be negated if we get rid of B.
So the motion has been made. Discussion?
I agree. I want to review that as well. I think it hinders people from being able to talk if they're late. I agree with Mr. Gillespie.
Yes, but primary concern is that it's nothing more than a limiting factor to allow public feedback. And I don't think that it's necessary.
I would also agree, for the record. Looking at other local government bodies, there's no requirement for pre-registration, so I don't think it's necessary here. Everyone's adults, and I think they would treat their opportunity to speak accordingly.
So just because I had an excellent discussion with Mr. Keller prior to this meeting, I took it upon myself to actually pull policies from boards from here to Southern Florida. And I will be honest, I did not find a single school board in probably about the 12 that I pulled that didn't have some type of registration. There was one, and I'm not at all trying to indicate that we should do this, but there was one school board that recommended that people pre-register 24 hours ahead of time. And so I couldn't find one necessarily. Again, I went from here to Southern Florida that would support that. I do think that, and further along in the meeting, we'll have additional discussion that will be super beneficial. But I think that it creates a lot of structure, and I would like to think and hope that if people intend to publicly speak, they come with intention, and that they would have no problem registering. In addition to that, I do have a small issue that I'm rather uncomfortable with. We are now recording the meetings, and so if anything, and if it's not on them, the yellow sheets today, we should consider adding that just so folks are aware that they are recorded. And I know we didn't say that at the beginning of the meeting, but I think it's certainly beneficial to know.
Thank you. I will let you know that it does say it on the card. It says it now does say this meeting may be recorded. And again, for the folks out there, it is true, we are recording. The last meeting is up on the website if you're so inclined to go back and take a look at that. Dandy of a time. But yeah, it does also say on the back, it is being recorded. So it is there. It is also on our agenda that goes out to the public, says this meeting may be recorded.
Well, we also have a policy that states when people come up to the podium, they are supposed to give their name and where they're from. It doesn't say physical address, just where they're from. And I think that's probably enough to record or make good notes for the meeting. So that's why I don't feel that that card is necessary. And I don't see how the card is going to ensure that anyone is not prepared to speak. People that come up here to speak are very prepared. And it's not something that anyone wants to do at a drop of a hat. So I just feel that it would be good to eliminate that policy.
So I'd like, Trustee Blondell, I'd like to add one more thing. Brighton, they have the card, but they don't have the time. So it is implemented at other places, because I feel like sometimes when people come to the meeting, they may not have any intention to speak. Something catches them, or they see something and they think of something and then they want to speak, and the problem is we don't give them an opportunity. So maybe we consider giving people who may not have a prepared speech but have something of quality to say to us the opportunity.
Well, my opinion on this would be, I believe the card provides a sense of order to a meeting. I mean, obviously we are at a school board meeting and order is key. So I'm in favor of keeping the card simply because it does provide order to when we get to the call to the public, where the people that did show up and wanted to speak have already made that clear. So I'm in favor of keeping the card.
I'd like to amend Glenn's motion and potentially keep the card, but maybe change it to that they may not have to have it in by 6:30. If you want to keep order, that's fine. But I move to amend it that we manage the time a little bit differently if we want to keep the card. Anybody second that?
I second it.
Thank you.
So the amendment to keep that, we have to vote on the first motion. That, and then if you want, then we can make a second motion. So I don't think we can amend a motion that hasn't been voted on. So, and I guess that's,
I think you have to vote on the amendment first, and then
Pardon me?
I think you have to vote on the acceptance of the amendment first.
And then we'd have to
You
vote to
on the
amend.
motion.
So I guess is there discussion, any more discussion? Because I guess we're currently going to vote on the motion to eliminate the card, that would be board policy 167.3 B and C. Is there any more discussion before we vote on that? Okay, and as far as order, we are doing roll call, and I indicated to the board members up here, I'm just going with the order that we currently have on this agenda. It'll be adjusted next time, so it'll make more sense, it'll flow left to right, but for this case, so voting to put on the item, put an item for discussion on to remove item 167.3 B and C, which call for public participation in the card. Mr. Keller?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Gogolewski?
Yay.
Ms. Blondeel?
Yay.
Ms. Shaw?
No.
Mrs. Glayback?
Nay.
Mrs. Coleman?
No.
And myself, I also vote no. So the motion to add that as a discussion item has failed. Is there more discussion for the approval of the items for discussion or for the agenda for today?
I'd like to move to add discussion to expand bylaw 0166 to require posting of all board member packet materials online at least 2 business days prior to the meeting for all materials that don't violate any legal statutes or personal confidentiality.
I second. Trustee Blondeel seconds.
Motion to add a discussion, is that a discussion item?
Correct.
Motion to add a discussion item to, sorry, Mr. Keller, was 0166, that's board policy?
Correct.
To add posting of all board member packets. Like prior, I mean, other than,
And two
Other
days
than-
prior to the actual
2
board
days prior.
meeting, online, accessible to the public.
other than personal information.
Correct.
Discussion,
Yeah, just, I think being new to the board, talking with, the district and those out in public, there was definitely a cry for increased transparency. And as someone who sat on the other side of this table, coming up here to public meetings, I didn't feel fully prepared at times to speak because the agenda, in my opinion, did not contain enough information for me to make an accurate determination of what was going to be talked about, therefore be able to render opinion and give the board my opinion. So for those reasons, I would propose we make that more accessible to the public.
I would like to say also, I'm sorry, that I've had some discussion with Mr. Keller on this, and I do think there's some merit involved in this. I think, like, for example, just the policies themselves, like right now, we're talking to the public about like policy 0166, and prior was another policy number. So I do think there's some merit in adding a portion of the board packet for sure, so the public can come in with a little bit more of an understanding of what we're doing. I don't think necessarily all of it, and we can, I guess we can get to that if and when we add it to the agenda, but I do think there's some merit in adding some portions of the board packet so the public absolutely could be kind of more aware of what's happening up here. So I think there's merit to it.
Yes, and Mr. Costa, I agree completely, because being on the other side of this desk, I know how frustrating it is to know exactly what's going to be talked about. And the information that's given to the public is minimal at best. And I think we need to change that. I think we need to provide that information and allow people to make decisions based on relative information if they plan on speaking. I think it's very important that we provide more information than what we have in the past.
I agree. I think I made myself very clear when I was on the other side of the podium that I never knew what anyone voted on. So I am a huge proponent of, making sure that everyone knows what we're talking about up here. And transparency is extremely important to our constituents.
Board, just because we have some new members, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you have your telephones on, that's what all the crackling is. you might be better off putting your telephone like down on the floor or in your pocket. It just will help with the crackling. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree that there's it's definitely worth discussing. But obviously we have to set clear parameters as to what can be shared and what can't. Anything that's personal information, there's privacy issues and those things cannot be shared. So as long as we spell it out clearly, I'm in support of definitely sharing more information.
I support as well. I think that when we get to the discussion item, perhaps we can discuss some specifics, you know, a little bit of a redesign of the packet, so that the public can fully understand and appreciate the information, and then have that 30 days to give us feedback, a little bit over 30 days in some months. But I guess I'll share specifics when we get to that discussion item.
And Mr. Keller, just to clarify, it's policy 0166 that we would be modifying, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, if there's no more discussion, then we'll go in order, the random order that we've chosen here tonight. Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Gogolewski,
Yay.
Ms. Blondeel,
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Glaylock,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
and myself, I'm also a yes. So that is going to be added to item 3B. So that'll be after item 3A. So item 3B will be discussing modifying policy 0166. Is there any more discussion for approval of the minutes?
Yes, I move to add the agenda discussion and change the timing of presentation of the board packet to the board.
I second.
Mrs. Blondeel, you are, well, motion,
Yeah, to add to the agenda, at
motion,
the end of the agenda, the discussion, to change the timing of presentation of the board packet to the board.
And I second.
motion by Mrs. Blondeel, seconded by Mr. Gogolewski to, I'm just trying to follow along.
I'll expand on it. That's just my motion to change the timing of presentation of the board packet to the trustees
To change the timing.
of the presentation of the board packet, yes. I can elaborate once we go into discussion.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah, since I brought the motion forward, I want to discuss. The reason being is that I think all of us have full-time jobs. Getting it Friday morning like we have been getting for a Monday morning meeting does not afford us the time that we need to digest everything that's on the packet, to seek out information and, you know, really let it do our due diligence. And just over the weekend, I hardly had any time over the weekend, and I would just like it earlier. I would like it the Monday prior to the meeting, the agenda. I thought through, and I don't see an issue with getting it earlier than Friday morning.
Hey, Rachel, when does month-end financials close? Like, when do they come out?
We don't really have a hard and fast
Okay.
end date. You know, that being said, you know, depending on when that last day of the month is, we can't compile that invoices report until that last day of the month. So it's just really gonna depend on how the meetings fall and whatnot, and getting that report out.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that, even if the report is not ready, I don't think that should be a factor in providing the packets sooner. It's like, and maybe it's my newness at this, but it's like getting a 3,000-page bill in Congress and then being told you're voting on it tomorrow. Well, I'd like a little bit more time to just kind of review and take a look and ask some questions, and have questions that Mr. Costa and Mr. Hughes have said, as far as giving them calls and asking questions and emails and whatnot. Having that lead time is extremely important.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I would also agree with Mrs. Blondeel, Mrs. Gogolewski. I think it's good that there's lots of information for us to look at. I think it does warrant some additional time for investigation, so I would agree.
I can say that all my years on the board, I found the lead time enough for me to digest it, only in the sense that perhaps I would take the initiative to call Mr. Hughes with any questions or concerns. Unfortunately, I called Mr. Hughes on the weekends, I've called him on Saturdays, I apologize, I've called him on Sundays, and you've always gotten back to me. So I personally have not had an issue with getting the board packet on that Thursday prior and being able to sort through any concerns I may have, whether he directs me to Mr. Minsker or Mr. Gannapps. I found it to be enough, so I don't know what other board members have found it to be enough that have been on the board. If they want to speak, if they've had enough time or not.
Well, for one, I really don't want to bother anyone on a weekend. I know how weekends can be a very sacred time, especially if you've had a busy week. So that's why I'd like them a little bit earlier.
I would like to say, I know it may feel like it's time crunching to the new board members because you're behind the 8 ball on coming into the board. Keep in mind that most action items were discussion items a month prior. Not often do we have action items that aren't talked about or thrown on the table that they're coming. For instance, the action item on the control system at the high school was in the board's hands for informational purposes, building and site, that it was coming and that we'd be getting that information to you. So most action items have been on the agenda since the previous meeting to give everybody plenty of time to reach out to us and talk to us about questions and concerns. Yes, periodically action items do go on there that have to be taken care of because they're last minute. And the reality is sometimes the last minute is the Wednesday or Thursday morning prior to the board meeting when the energy company's calling us and saying, hey, you got to lock in like now, like, and I'm scrambling to make calls to you all and fill you in on what's going on. And I just make sure that I reach out to you and call you. So that's just my 2 cents for what it's worth. So we do try to get the board packets out to you on Thursday. Usually it's Thursday. Sometimes it's Friday morning, but we do try to get them out on Thursday.
Well, just an observation, it's interesting that this information is supposedly available, yet coming to these meetings for the last year and a half, very little discussion goes on. And I think you're going to find, especially since the last meeting when Mrs. Blondeel was able to ask some questions, there's going to be more questions asked, giving us the time to review the material and be a little bit more informative to the public. So I think it's a legitimate request.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I guess the final thing is like, Chuck, when we ask questions, you say, come to my office and meet with me. And then, and then if we can't meet on Monday morning, we don't have the opportunity to come in and meet with you. So, that's a really difficult thing. And so that's why maybe not Monday, maybe a couple more days, and it's a request. I think it's an honest request because I'm a busy working mother. I need some time to be able to digest this, and this took a long time because we want to make sure that our constituents, that we're doing what's right for our constituents, because that's what they voted us in for. And if we don't get time to do our due diligence, I think that's not doing our duty. So that's why it's important that we really understand and digest, because last time when we were talking about the building or the $4 million bond, and we were talking, and then the pressure was on because we needed to spend money by November. And then when we were discussing it, I was remiss and I didn't ask what date we needed to spend the money on, and then follow up after the meeting, after I had a vote on it, it was November 2023. Had I had that information, maybe a couple more days to have it, circulate in my brain, I could have asked you that question, which would have allowed me to really make a different decision than I made. I didn't want to hinder the district from getting work done or losing a bond, but had I known we had until November 2023, I think things would have been a little different. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's just a little more time, talk with you, maybe meet with you in your office and things of that nature.
So whatever you all decide on that, obviously, as a superintendent, I'm your at-will employee. I'll do what you ask me to do. Please know that weekends, holidays, when I'm on vacation, I answer my phone. I am there to answer your questions even on the weekends. Don't ever feel like you can't give me a call because I'm there.
So I know I've already spoke on this, but I feel I have to come back to again, I have 8 years on the board. I'm not actually even sure. I've never not had the opportunity to reach out to Mr. Hughes to get an answer on a question to a board packet, and not just like some little answer that is just touching the subject, like an in-depth explanation, whether he directs me to one of his other departments and they give me the answer. I've never struggled with it, so again, for what it's worth for me, I feel that the lead time of getting the packet is fine where it stands. But
Well, may I ask what the problem would be with getting it sooner? Is there something we're missing?
my concern would be that Mr. Hughes and his team are putting that packet together that week to make sure that we have everything we need. And if we're gonna ask for it even sooner, they're gonna give us a packet that's gonna be incomplete, and then we're gonna get something else added to it. I'd rather have it all at once, be able to look it over, and start making phone calls to whether to do Mr. Hughes, and then once I've spoken to him, to other board members, to see their insight on what's happening. So if anything, it's a courtesy to Mr. Hughes and his department to put together a packet that's complete for us.
Well, I think what his statement just a few minutes ago was that it's the same thing as the previous month. So what would be the big change, you know, because now that we've got two different ideas here. You said that there was the number month before and now there may be changes or it may not be complete. Is that?
We're working all week to get that packet ready for you, and there are times that I even with Thursday, I have to come back to the board on Monday morning and say, Renee, send this to the board that we're adding this to the agenda, because it has to be done. So, you know, we've always, you know, for whatever it's worth, we work Monday through Wednesday. So on Thursday morning, Renee and I sit down, go over everything, and we make sure all the documents are in order. We have everything we need from all the departments or anybody that we need documents from, put it together. Yep, it's right, get it to the board this afternoon. So that's how we've always done business. If you tell us to get it out on Wednesday, we'll do our best, but there are just gonna be some times, like even now, trying to get it out on Thursday, sometimes it goes out on Friday morning, right? So whatever day you choose, we'll work our best to get it out. I'm just saying, there may be many times where we say, hey, it's gonna be delayed,
Thank you,
because
Mr.
we're
Hughes.
working on it.
Okay, I feel that we've had discussion.
I'd like to
People made
add
their
comments.
Okay, for sure. Do you got a point to add?
Yeah, I guess just hearing the comments, being a new board member, I did my best to listen to the board meeting recording, and I never saw or heard any mention of this actual bond package in the previous notes. So I guess I'm failing to understand where the discussion was on this item a month ago. I don't see it in the minutes, and I don't recall the discussion. So again, it just speaks to the fact that having the information a little bit sooner would be helpful, I think, to all. And I appreciate the fact that it takes a lot of work for the superintendent and his team to put all the information together, but you know, it also takes us a lot of work to digest it too, when you're not the one putting it together. So I think there's kind of two sides to the coin.
Okay. With that, we will vote to make on the motion to change the timing of the board packet presentation to the board to add the discussion item to the packet, to move the board packet presentation to the board earlier as to that Monday of that week. Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Gobleski,
Yay.
Ms. Blondie,
Yay.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Costa, that would be me. I would vote no. So that will be placed on as a discussion item, so that will be 3C. Just want to make sure I say it correctly. Mrs. Blondie, change the timing of the presentation of the board packet to earlier in the week.
Yes.
Okay. We still are on approval of the agenda, which is item 1B. Is there any more discussion? Okay. Voting on item 1B, approval of the agenda, Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Gobleski,
Yay.
Ms. Blondie,
Yay.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Layback,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
and myself, I vote yes. That motion carries. Item 1C, approval of the minutes of December 12, 2022 regular meeting.
I motion to add bylaw numbers to the minutes.
Mr. Gogolewski, first we have to make a motion to approve it, and then if you wanted to make a
Fine.
comment. So first we have to make a motion to actually talk about it. So
And I think that would go well with the discussion of the whole entire board packet. To this point,
okay,
so we just motion to add.
so currently, I don't want to put words into Mr. Gogolewski's mouth. So currently we're on item 1C, approval of the minutes.
I move that the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 regular meeting be approved. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Now, Mr. Gogolewski.
And I motion to add the bylaw numbers to the minutes. If you take a look at the minutes, there were, where it talks about bylaws, we did not have the actual number there in the material.
So I guess I have a question for perhaps Mr. Hughes. Does Mr. Gogolewski have to make a motion to add those bylaws, or can we just have a discussion right now, because we're just discussing and just say we'd like them
I
added?
think you just amend the minutes.
So we can amend the minutes. So, Mr. Gogolewski, I don't want to speak for you, but you're just looking to amend those minutes so those bylaws numbers are there.
Right, and we continue to do that.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
So do we have to vote on them, Mr. Hughes?
I just gotta clarify, because I'm not sure if Renee's on the same page either, because remember, Renee's gotta make sure this all works. So.
We do already do that. When they're action items, the numbers are in there. When they're just discussion items, we don't report any.
So for those at home that can't hear, so when they're action items, those numbers are included, but when they're discussion items, they're not. So I guess we would, if we, I don't know if we have to agree, I'm for adding the discussion item policy number.
Yeah, and I think we need to add from last week's discussion item that we did discuss at the end of the meeting, 0164.2. And we did not capture that in the meetings. In the minutes. Ooh.
So for revised bylaws, just to, again, Mrs. Cleveland, so revised bylaws for the last meeting, it was policy, which number?
0164.2, if I'm not mistaken. So we just need to add, I'm assuming, Glenn, what you're noting under revised bylaw towards the bottom of the minutes, that we just got a note in those minutes that we presented 01642 to be revised.
Correct.
Okay.
And I like what Mrs. Cleveland said going forward also, it would make sense to simply have that
I'll second.
for all. I don't know, do we have a second? Or
I think you
can we
just have-
have a conversation?
You just have to have a
Yeah.
conversation, and unless there's a major reason why you wouldn't do it.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding approval of the minutes of December 12th, 2022 regular meeting? Hearing none, Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Gogolewski,
Yay.
Ms. Blondil,
Yay.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
and myself, I vote yes. Item 1D, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Couple different things. First of all, January is Board Appreciation Month, so we did put the sign out front and just again, thank the board for taking on the responsibility of helping guide this district forward as we continue to make sure that our students and our staff are supported in the best educational environment we can possibly provide. So we thank you for that. Again, happy Board Appreciation Month. I wanted to welcome Greg and Glenn to the table, so welcome. You have it for a minute. I also wanted to just remind the board that we are moving forward with the non-homestead renewal. Again, for the community, and if you don't understand what the non-homestead is, The non-homestead is the 18 mills non-homestead applied to all non-homestead property. The state of Michigan, when they distribute our funding, they minus out, they subtract all of the revenue for the 18 mills of non-homestead in your school district. Unless the district passes a non-homestead, some call it operating millage. That operating millage has to be collected by the district or we lose out on those dollars. Right now, it's estimated, I think, Rachel, at about $5.5 million. There's also something that kicks in when you have a non-homestead millage under state law. There's a rollback that occurs. That rollback has rolled back to 17.8 or something like that at this point in time. It's in front of me someplace. I don't have it right at hand. But 17.8. So it's rolled back. So that means we're not collecting all of the 18 mills for the non-homestead property. So in May, we'll come forward to the community to ask you to vote on the non-homestead millage. Again, it's worth $5.5 million. In May, the language will say something like to renew and increase, and you'll hear increase because currently the 18 mil sits at 17.8. So the language will have to say to renew the full 18 mils and to increase it by whatever the difference is between 17.8 and 18 mils, right? So we have to do that to collect our operating money. It's just something that we are expected to do. It occurs every 5 years. Some districts, for a while there in the district, we did it every year just to get the community used to doing it. It usually passes no problem, 75 to 79%. And again, it does not affect any of the homesteaded properties. So it doesn't affect you as a homeowner. It only affects non-homesteaded properties. But that's what it is, and we will get information out to everybody. Hopefully, if the board has any questions, I gave you a sheet. If you have questions, you contact me, we walk it through because we need to support this as a board because those are our dollars. That's our general fund dollars that come in, and without it, if it were to not be renewed, then you'd have to go out and say to the public next year, would you please approve 18 mils? That wouldn't be a good way to do it either. So.
And what is the date on that? What is the date on that vote?
I think it's May 2nd, if I'm not mistaken.
Is there any particular reason why it's done in May?
Something we do it in May, Rachel, jump in. We do it in May because if it fails, we have to go back. If it fails, we have to go back. And so then we have an August election and.
Right, so if we do a May election because the levy expires in June. So if the levy fails, the expires in June, then you have to go back in August and ask for that increase to full 18 mils. So that's typically why we've done a May election.
Is there a cost to have a special election to the school district? Oh, there is. How much is that?
I don't recall, Rachel.
Yeah, it's about $25,000 to $30,000.
Okay, is there some reason we didn't do it in November? Have it on the November ballot?
Or August?
I'm just asking.
We just, probably because we've always done it in May, the community's used to seeing it in May as one of those special elections. And keep in mind, in the November election ballot, when you have a general election ballot, all school proposals have to be last on the ballot. And oftentimes when people get to the end, it's a lot easier just to say no because they've not paid attention to what it really is. They have no idea, so they just get an automatic no. So it's not a good time. Districts that have tried it in November have seen where it's failed more often than passed.
Right, we find that in May, you're coming out to vote for that purpose. That is something that you are coming out for. Like Chuck said, it's just not an oversight, just not a throwaway vote. So that's why we've taken that approach in the past.
Yeah, I only ask because there's many of our constituents here that seem to be very cost conscious. And there was quite a lot of discussion when we had a recount about how much that cost. And that's why I bring it up, why we have a one issue vote in May. So I'm just curious about that. Now, the other thing that concerns me is that since proposal 2 passed in this last election, come 2024, if we continue to have elections in May, we are going to have to pay for 9 days worth of staffing poll locations, which is going to easily double the amount of cost. So this is something that I would at some later point like to dive in a little bit further.
Appreciate it. And again, I just wanted to make that clear that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. Again, sometimes the public just needs to hear again that it doesn't affect your home, your taxes, it affects non-homestead only. So, all right. I think that's everything on the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item 1E, call to the public. I do have some cards. I am going to ask again that public, you try to make your comments in a 3-minute time frame or so. I got a reminder, I know we've all already talked about this, but this meeting is being recorded for those of you that do come up, just so you're aware. First card I have is Michael Yarber.
Testing. My name is Michael Yarber, and I am a senior at Heartland High School. I've been in Heartland schools since kindergarten, and I've had many positive experiences. I've benefited from the expert instruction of many teachers. Despite the work ethic and expertise of many staff members, though, I felt like the high school hasn't prioritized academics during my time here. Throughout my 4 years at the high school, the top students have not had one nice event to celebrate their hard work in the classroom. No announcements on the school TVs, nothing published in the community life paper, and definitely no evening reception. I was disappointed in the district when this year's NHS induction ceremony took place during the school day. I didn't even attend the ceremony because I didn't want to miss anything from my AP biology class. I'm sure many other students didn't go to the meeting for the same reason. If Heartland Consolidated Schools truly wants to be an example of their premier learning experience, would it not be appropriate to hold a formal event in the evening? This school year, even the middle school held a formal National Honor Society meeting in the evening where students dressed up. My sister is one of the officers, and my mom and dad said that the stands were packed with parents. Parents were not invited to the high school induction, which is a real shame because I'm sure many parents support their kids' education. How can you say that education and academics are important when the high school doesn't even have a formal event to celebrate academics? I was also disappointed when the district installed a pass-fail system for the second semester of the 2020 academic school year. By doing this, they deleted the hard work of hardworking students like my brother, who was excelling in several AP classes at the time. The district has repeatedly shown its indifference to hard work in the classroom. When students are recognized for their achievement in the classroom, it motivates other students to work hard in order to feel the satisfaction of being accomplished and recognized. You might say that that's not fair because school is just challenging for some. And while it's true that some students experience a genuine difficulty with school, I'd like to counter by saying how I've gotten to know the kids in my class very well over the last 12 years. And many students who aren't successful in school simply do not make school a priority, mostly evidenced by ineffective use of class time. I believe the high school does a good job of offering classes of varying difficulty. Therefore, hiding the academic achievement of certain students in order to protect the emotions of other students in high school benefits nobody. Simply put, I believe that it's in the best interest of students if the board members encourage the recognition of student achievement, particularly at the high school. Establishing a culture of hard work, investment, and dreaming big to produce productive members of society will pay huge dividends to the students, the community, and even to the world. I have faith in you, the board, that you can make this happen. You can make academics a priority. Thank you.
Next card is Kelly Turcott.
Good evening. I'm here to discuss the dismissal of Coach Deanna Radcliffe, the Heartland High School girls varsity lacrosse coach. Much of what I have to say was covered in my email to all of you yesterday. I invite you to reread it, please. Sorry, I'm very emotional about this. But after Mr. Hughes responded to my email, I have some additional thoughts and questions that I felt needed attention of the board due to the fact that the trials are normally scheduled the second week of March. Due to the impending season, I respectfully request that this situation gets the immediate attention of this board. I was told in my email response that Mr. Wheeler completed an assessment of concerns within the program, and I support the decision to move in the direction indicated. Completed an assessment. An assessment of what? And how was it completed? To my knowledge, only select individuals were questioned in regard to Coach Radcliffe. How can that be considered complete when only a few select people were questioned? I believe the decision to fire Coach Radcliffe was made on conjectures. Respectfully, in my conversations with Mr. Wheeler and the response from the superintendent, I feel like my voice, my concern, and that of my daughters does not matter, and that's upsetting. I am completely perplexed why this situation feels like it lacks transparency, but I am continuing to question why. Why is this an open and shut case for the administration? My hope in voicing my concerns today is to spark some discussion amongst the board and hope the appropriate questions get asked. Why does a coach get called in for being mentally damaging to players, get fired, and then rehired? Then a particular parent who is heavily involved in this called Mr. Wheeler with an accusation of MHSAA violation by Coach Radcliffe. Then she loses her job again with the reasoning of taking the program in a new direction, only to find out there's been no MHSAA violations, nor any MHSAA investigation. Ironically, the morning after Coach Radcliffe was rehired, that particular parent who was heavily involved in this matter put a social media post out there with a passive aggressive comment voicing his displeasure. Quickly, she was fired again. We are now in the 11th hour before lacrosse season begins. And at this point, normally our coach is in constant contact with the girls who want to try out. Coach Radcliffe sends emails to prospective players with preparing them for information to set them up for success. Yet at this point, there is nothing. The girls are left wondering, waiting, concerned. Is this how we care for our student athletes? Is this how we care for our dedicated coaches? I'm requesting again the reinstatement of Coach Radcliffe while you perform a more detailed investigation as to how this situation came to be. In my opinion, the decision to dismiss Coach Radcliffe was based on personal agendas and false accusations. This is an injustice to our players, to Coach Radcliffe, to the reputation of Heartland High School sports and our community. Thank you for your time.
Holly Austin.
Hello. Happy New Year to all of you. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the 4 new members to our board. It was an arduous and contentious election, but I am very pleased that each of you were voted in by the community. Prior to the election, my husband and I were very disappointed with how the board handled the perverse and inappropriate books that were put into the hands of children at Heartland High. My emails to the previous board members and superintendent fell on deaf ears and did not receive a reply. This is a dereliction of duty, and I would like to remind you that you serve the community, which includes parents, students, businesses, and other constituents here in Heartland. I believe the bad press could have been avoided if any one of those board members reached out to the parents that showed concern. Since then, I did find out who to contact via my child's English teacher. Thank you to her. I was able to meet with Mr. Minster, and I was able to meet with Sarah Demgen on November 11th. These books went through 10 years of students through Heartland, which is horrific, but they presented a plan to help avoid this type of grievance in the future and removed the aforementioned book. The plan is a solid one, and I noticed it was already implemented for the winter semester, so thank you again for that. I would like to make sure this board follows up to ensure the plan is part of the policies and procedures in future for all curriculum. I did receive a follow-up phone call from 2 appointed board members after this meeting, one who has recently been elected. I appreciate that follow-up phone call, though I feel 1 month to receive a call back was severely lagging when I am a constituent of this community. The other one board member acted diplomatically, listened, and even validated my concerns, so thank you for that. The other, who has not yet been elected to this board, was argumentative, confrontational, and rude. Which takes me to my next issue. It is in my opinion, there should not be a person serving on a school board who has participated in libeling members of this community and who has been involved in silencing and censoring many members of this community through administration activities on Facebook groups, especially one who has not been elected by we the people. It would be my recommendation this type of behavior stops and this person removes herself from these preferential groups, or this person steps down until she can tolerate listening to all viewpoints without bias and prejudice and act in the best interests of parents who come forward with concerns. Lastly, lest this board has any inkling to try to pass future medical mandates like Ann Arbor, I would like to offer myself as a resource for evidence-based research when it concerns healthcare related issues. It is not a secret I view all of these practices unconstitutional, and while I do not have legal expertise, the courts are agreeing with me, as is identified by the Michigan Court of Claims in May of last year. In previous meetings, I have presented research findings. After presenting, the superintendent emailed me with an Associated Press fact checker snippet, which was not grounded in research, pandered to big pharma, and had no merit for what I presented. In my experience as an advanced healthcare provider,
Ms. Alston, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you do have to wrap things up.
I am. In my experience as a healthcare provider, we do not use fact checkers and we do not use the Associated Press for research. I am offering my services if you need any evidence-based research that is peer reviewed and grounded in science. Thank you. I'll send you my email.
George Scandy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to congratulate everybody that is new in the school board. And let's start with the ladies first. Congratulations, John. Good feedback from some managers that you work together with. The automotive industry is small. Congratulations to Mr. Dreiber. Beautiful last name from Germany. I spent about 9 years in German speaking country. I have very good words before you moved out of Michigan from some people that used to work with you. Very fair manager. Congratulations. I hope that you are going to be fair also in the school board with our kids, because it's not only our kids, in our kids are those you two kids too that are all together. Congratulations. Glenn, I know it's not much to say. You work too hard. Greg, congratulations. I wish you the best in your school board and good luck in your graduate degree that you are going through. Good luck. Let me know if you need any help. Automotive industry has a lot of resource. I don't have much to say, but I see that we started the school board meeting in a couple of discussions that makes common sense. Unfortunately, was going back and forth and pounding sand. Are we going to find something good and working together between school boards, parents, and everybody else and the teachers in this year? Are we going to make that easy for all the parents, teachers, and the school board, or are we going to waste our time coming here again? I did some research, and there are a lot of good things going on in other schools, and especially Old Lake School Board. And pretty much I'm going to close my discussion again with wish everybody a good New Year 2023, and good luck to everybody, and good work together between parents, teachers, and school boards. Here's some material that I want to share with you guys.
Jeff Scott.
Good evening. Welcome to the new board members. I'm here tonight to express my extreme disappointment in the way Mr. Costa ran last month's meeting and the dirty political trick he played on the stakeholders here in Heartland by swapping out the board secretary at the very last minute without including it in the published agenda, and therefore avoiding public input and prohibiting the duly elected members of the 2023 board from casting their rightful votes to the secretary position as the bylaws demand. It was appalling to see that rather than bring this community together, Mr. Costa has instead insisted on playing political tricks to divide us. Mr. Costa has claimed that this maneuver was necessary for the continuity of the board to ensure they didn't go 8 days without a secretary. 8 days. I don't buy it. If it was necessary, there would have been measures in place ahead of the meeting to make this change, and it would have been on the agenda. It was not. Even if Mr. Costa did feel it was necessary, it does not give him the right nor the ability to circumvent the bylaws of this board. I have asked Mr. Costa to include this on tonight's agenda, and he has flat out refused. No offense to Ms. Shaw, and she very well may win the position, but I do not believe the bylaws were followed. This impropriety does more to threaten district operations than the possibility of 8 days without a secretary. Tonight, I call on the board of directors to remove Mr. Costa from his role as president with cause. It is your right under the bylaws. This requires just a simple majority vote of the board. Then you should hold new elections for a new president, rightfully elect a secretary. Frankly, I believe all executive positions should be vacated and reelected by the board tonight so that the one-year terms of the officers coincide with the calendar year election terms, and we can avoid this contentious issue going forward. At the very least, it needs to be addressed in the bylaw review. Every elected board member, all of you, have the right to elect your officers. Thank you.
Fry.
Hello. I think by now everybody knows who I am and what I'm here for. So I'm going to keep it super brief because it looks like it's going to be a super long meeting tonight. But separation of church and state, you let in any religion, you let in all. Thank you.
Jason Ringet.
Heartland Public Schools education has gone off the rails. The power, the money, the politics, the unions, and special interest groups undermining our children's education. Heartland keeps pushing left-wing woke agendas of immoral sexualization, perversion signs of LGBTQ, DEI, and rainbow signs within the schools. We are supposed to protect our kids' innocence, not exposing them to safe space signs that represent sexualization, grooming tactics pushed by groomers to exploit our children. Amazon sells these same stickers advertising the safe space signs as LGBTQA. A couple of these signs on the high school doors have explicit words written on them, which is nothing more than exploiting our children, grooming our kids for pedophilias, discriminating over 99% of the students who do not support or share the same beliefs. I gave each board member a small sample of proof what's posted on the high school doors. Chuck, you say Christian safe space stickers are harassment based upon religious belief. That is against the law. Really, Chuck? I love the double standards that you pick and choose. One day we will all be standing in front of Jesus, given accountability for our actions. We all have a final destination, heaven or hell, after judgment from Jesus. Since you are such a stickler of following the law, DEI and safe space stickers need to be eliminated. It violates Article 1, Section 26 of the Michigan Constitution. It's unconstitutional in our schools to have discrimination and to give preferential treatment over one race or the other. The DEI safe space sticker positions are unconstitutional. September 21, 2022, Heartland's administration put out an email saying the Elliott Larson case allows biological males access to female restrooms and female locker rooms. This isn't true, Chuck. Biden's revision amendments to Title IX is just a guidance. It's not a law. It does not give biological males access to female restrooms or locker rooms. I emailed Heartland school officials and you proof last month from the Florida's Department of Education, the revisions of the U.S. Board of Education, U.S. Agriculture put out on Title IX are not laws. They do not make laws. You might want to reread the U.S. Constitution. This administration reckless actions is why I pulled my daughters out of Heartland schools. If this administration keeps turning a blind eye to biological males using a female restrooms, locker rooms, and there's a sexual assault on one of the female students, I wonder what actions the prosecutor's office, the law enforcement, and the victim's parents will take against Heartland schools. Per schooldigger.com in 2015, before you took power, Chuck, Heartland was ranked 49 in academics in the state of Michigan, being a premier school in education. Since you've taken over as superintendent of Heartland schools, why has Heartland high school education and academics plummeted under your leadership? Since 2016 in academics ranked 68 under your leadership, 2019 ranked 80 under your leadership, 2021 ranked 90th under your leadership, and now in 2022, Chuck, Heartland's ranked 80 under your leadership. U.S. Education News has Heartland High School ranked 121 in education for 2022. Thank you very much.
Susan Topolowski. Just want to make sure Susan's not here. Susan did leave. Okay. It's not her. All right. Brooke Chappelle.
How's it going, everyone? Happy New Year. And welcome, new board members. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Very weird seeing you up here, but very cool. You know, I'd like to just discuss something. The gentleman, when he was discussing Mr. Costa and how he got in, I do want to kind of remind people that we had Tom step down one board meeting because he said that he could not finish his actual term. He didn't want to do any more. So at that meeting, that's when we had to appoint Chris Costa as president. And then the following board meeting, what do you know? Tom's back and now he's going to run for an actual term. So he couldn't finish 6 months, but then he wanted to run for an actual whole term. So I do think that there is some stuff going on with the way we appoint things and we take the decisions away from the public. I'd also like to point out that Mr. Costa, you said that you've been here for 8 years and you were discussing how you know some of the policies, etc. Well, then please explain to me how Ms. Shaw can be violating the board policies online. I find it very inappropriate that she can be censoring and doing all of the things that she's been up to online, especially when she's not saying that it's not me, the board, but it's me, it's not, I'm not speaking as the board is what she should be saying. But instead, when she says it, it sounds like it's coming from all of you. So I really would like to either say, I think she should step down, or she should step down from managing some of her pages, because it's a conflict of interest, certainly. And you might want to check out the public expression of board members, because that's the policy that I was looking up. I think that's about it. Thanks.
Kay Fox.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kate Fox. I live here in Heartland Township for the past 25 years. I'm gonna read off my script. So good evening. I wanted to come forward to say a big congratulations to the 3 newly elected members of this board. I'm happy to see you sitting up there tonight. I look forward to a new school board to look at our challenges that lie ahead. I'm sure there will be many. I hope that you all will decide what is best for our children, teachers, and staff to what our curriculum will be taught here at Heartland High School, our Heartland Consolidated Schools. With the results of the November election, it's obvious that most of the citizens here in Heartland are happy to have the 3 of you join this team. Others, not so much. 2, I wanted to ask that you take a deep dive into the CRT, or otherwise known as SEL material, along with explosive gender identity issues we are faced with today. Please discuss and come to a reasonable agreement if that material and guidelines that you choose to put forth, if that's what is best for our children, for our young K through 12 developing minds of this community. As you are aware, this issue has many of us mama bears very worried, on both sides of that aisle for that matter. Not every decision is going to be liked, agreed upon, but I ask that you please take time, reflect back on your childhood, what your upbringing was, and compare to what you are seeing today. Do we step back and raise our children with the same values and guidelines we had growing up, or do we drastically change everything, all because one wants to appease a smaller than minority? I had recently read on one of the local Facebook group sites that somebody, probably in this room tonight, went so far as calling this board the hate slate. Yeah, you're the hate slate. That term is quite oftenly used, and it's rather unfortunate. I know you see it too, Chuck. You're a member. I see you're on there. I find that rather disgusting and quite concerning that a group of people are so concerned and claim that they want to spread love, not hate, has named this newly elected board with the very word they claim they want to protect us from. All while most of the people who casted their ballots in November, this school board said quite differently. With that said, I ask you to ignore these people, stay focused, determined, and dedicated to make the necessary changes that those voters who put you in those seats. Lastly, I came up here to express my extreme disappointment in board member Ms. Shaw. You have been a long-time admin of those once popular Heartland Moms.
I do have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, I got one paragraph. So I am extremely disappointed in Ms. Shaw, one who kicked me off of that site because she didn't like my opinion. And I think censoring of parents' voices in social media is not correct. You should not be doing that. And for that matter, I think that she should also step down.
So ends call to the public. Item 1F, board reports and requests. Let's get a start on that end. Ms. Blondell, maybe work our way this way.
Sure, I'll start, okay. So I'd like to know more about the situation with the lacrosse coach. I think I've voiced that, but it seems to me that there are some unanswered questions that, maybe we can answer. I know that if it's an employee, we have to keep things, confidential. However, there's just some situations that I think we need to delve into. I would also like clarification why some members have 3 committee assignments and when newly elected trustees are only given 1. I think Glenn's only on 1. He's only on 1 committee, and I think we have other members who have 3 each. I'd like to update that. So I'd like to see it spread out evenly to ensure there's a balanced oversight necessary to make the best decisions for the district. I also have a request. I have a request for a detailed presentation to be given to the board in this community explaining the district's SEL program. I would like for the presentation to include examples of situations that frontal lobe or amygdalas would be part of a teacher's thought process when handling a student. Examples, I'd also like examples of SEL teachings for the students and the content shared with the students. Do students have to divulge any personal information in front of other students that may expose their vulnerabilities or feelings? The presentation should include the cost, data-driven benefits, examples and data-driven evidence of other districts that have used the SEL program and how Heartland is measuring this program's success. There's a lot of controversy around SEL. SEL is intended to help, facilitate children understanding how to, deal with each other and be kind. To me, it seems that some of the current SEL programs are telling children they're not allowed to dislike each other, or they have to accept each other for exactly who they are, which is not natural. It's not natural for human beings to like every other human being. And so I want to know more about it. I want to know if this is a pilot program, or if Horatio Sanchez has had any kind of other districts that we can prove that this SEL program that we're using, because if we are dealing with children's frontal lobes and amygdalas that are not, it's not developed yet, that's practicing psychology in my mind. Maybe I'm mistaken. That's why I want the presentation. So I can't make any assessments until I see that. So I'd like that. Secondly, there's been much discussion by the community surrounding safety. There is a very strict visitor policy, very stringent. However, student safety has not been significantly at risk from parents. I haven't seen anything in the news about parents going into schools or anything like that. It's been predominantly other students. With that knowledge and the recent shooting by an elementary student, what are we doing to protect the students when there's a threat by another student? I'd like an audit of the processes and procedures to handle student threats, and a report given to the board at the next meeting. I'm involved in another school district that had a threat, and the way they handled it was significantly, it was very, I'm losing my thought, because that's why I have this written down, because I want to get all my thoughts out. So forgive me if I ad-lib, I'm bad at it. So I'm going to put my thought there. So third, I would like to understand which organizations we use for supplemental curriculum. For example, CNN and PBS are the only news and videos used to my knowledge, and they're both far left-leaning organizations, and their content can be traced to organizations that slant towards a particular political ideology. In the name of neutrality, we need to choose organizations that do not subscribe to a political orientation. We are a school district and should not allow ideology in our classrooms. We absolutely need to be politically neutral. I would like a complete list of supplemental curriculum companies, including news outlets, that our teachers use and to have them presented to this board. And then lastly, I'd just like to know, is there a policy for transgender students using bathrooms, and is it written down? I haven't seen it, maybe there is. And that completes my my statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blondell. Mr. Keller?
Yeah, I just want to thank the residents of the district for taking time to, first of all, vote in the school board election this past November. That was quite shocking to me, actually. Going through the recount, how many ballots were just left blank. So I encourage everybody that did not take the time to research who you wanted to vote for, please do that next time, even if it's, not me, for example. But, again, I'm humbled by your vote of confidence, and, I look forward to serving the community. And then lastly, I just want to thank the members of the board who took an opportunity to welcome me to the board. It was greatly appreciated, and I look forward to working with all of you going forward. I think the rest of my comments we kind of added to the agenda, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Ms. Claybach.
Just want to welcome Glenn and Greg to the board. We are happy to have you, and I think that we have lots of great discussion items ahead. The second thing I want to be sure I share is I think that the board, especially the new members, it's uber beneficial to meet with Rachel. There's a lot of confusion on our check registers, and she is able to answer every question very thoroughly. A lot of our booster dues and those types of things run through here, and so it looks like, the volleyball team might be getting dinner every week, but really it's a booster facilitation, and even some of the PTO facilitations are on there. So I recommend you guys do a deep dive. She's extremely knowledgeable and has helped tremendously with my questions and my kind of detailed look at things. That's it.
I'll go, I suppose. I do also want to welcome Glenn and Greg, welcome aboard. Kind of the same points that Ms. Claybach just made. I would encourage all the new board members to use our superintendent and assistant superintendents to answer the questions they have. I know we spoke about your concerns with SEL, and I encourage you to reach out to Mr. Hughes. I'm sure he'd be more than willing and happy to put together what you're looking for to help you better understand kind of the process that's happening here in Heartland. And I that would start with a phone call. Like I said, I do talk to Mr. Hughes more lately than ever. And actually, the first time I was in your office in the first, how many years? But they are a resource that we as board members should be talking to. Like you said, you all were voted up here for a reason. You have Mr. Hughes and his team right there to speak to. They are there for you. They are transparent for you. They will give you and tell you what you need. You just have to reach out to them. So I encourage the board to do that. I know I've had some good discussions with Mr. Keller this weekend, and that's another thing that the public should know, that obviously when we come up here, it is great. Our last meeting was on Blondie on a lot of the good questions, and I think that was valuable to the community to see that there's conversation going on, and she's thinking through what she wants to know and say. And again, I would encourage all board members to talk to one another. So we do have an idea of what we're going to be saying and doing up here. I think it shows that we are functioning as one board for all kids. The last thing I think we want to do is get up here and start to show that we're not here for everybody. And I think that comes with just communication. So I would encourage communication with all of us. And I guess lastly, on a positive note, we're in the second semester, so we're halfway through here in Heartland. Good luck to the staff and the students, for that matter, the parents. You only got a half a year to go. So with that, I'm all set. Mrs. Coleman?
Well, piling on what you were saying, I was just going to say welcome back to everyone, to our administration and to our teachers, our students. Here we go. We're in the home stretch, hopefully. And just say welcome to our new board members. And I'm looking forward to finishing the year strong.
Mrs. Shaw?
Thank you. Again, welcome to everyone. And I just want to give the community a reminder that tomorrow from 5 to 7 at Heartland High School is the Career and Technical Education Department Open House. My son, who is now a junior, who's enrolled in energy technology, attended this open house with me. I think he was in 5th grade. And he decided right then that, boy, this is for me. So he's in this class as a junior. And we have plenty of programs, not just energy technology. So even if you think, well, high school's a long way off for my kids, it really can answer a lot of questions, and you can really see all of the amazing things that the district has to offer. Thank you.
Mrs. Shaw, I'm just sorry, Ms. Gilbert, before you got in there. What time is that tomorrow? Because it is a great opportunity for the community.
It says 5 to 7.
Is that correct? 5 to 7, yeah, at the high school.
With free food,
Ooh,
free snacks.
Free snacks.
Free snacks.
Yep.
It is a great
They'll
opportunity.
have, teachers will be there, they'll have demonstrations, so all that fun stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Gilglasson?
Well, those snacks sold me on coming to the event tomorrow, but I'd like to say thank you to the voters of the Heartland School District. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very eager and looking forward to serving our students and working with the other board members. I'm also very, very impressed that there has been a growing amount of participation in our board meetings with parents showing up, and that is something that is just absolutely crucial for the health of our school system. There's a lot of you here tonight, which is great to see. There's even a lot of people online, and some as even far away as Portland, Oregon, go figure. But it's amazing. I'm happy to see all of that participation, and your involvement is absolutely key. And since we now have our emails up to, if there's things that you want to discuss, I'm very happy to see people emailing the board, Chuck, Chris, and all the board members. We want to hear from you. We really do. I think it's great. But just to piggyback a little bit on Michelle's statement, one thing that I'm looking to do is kind of dive in a little bit in terms of some of the materials that we may be using for SEL and determining where they're coming from, such as maybe the Castle Group, which I do have some various concerns about. Also, I do want to take a look further at some of the incidents that go on in our schools in terms of either incidents involving students or teachers being physically abused and what have you. And this is something that we want to get a hold of, and we want to make our environments safe for teachers and students. It is absolutely essential that we do that. So with that, I thank you.
Mr. Costa, I have one more thing. Sure. Okay. I do want to expand a little bit. I want to talk about what Jason said about the rainbow flags. I know there's a lot of discussion about that, and I know some students have displayed or have told us that it's not comfortable for them because they don't identify as such. And I feel like if we're going to be inclusive, and if this is the way that we're going to be moving forward, and students don't feel that they're being included, I think we're off the rails on that one. So I want to delve into what Jason said about any kind of like case rulings or anything like that. So if we can have that discussion next month, that would be great.
Again, yeah, I encourage any new board member who has any questions or concerns to reach out to Mr. Hughes for answers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I think, again, when we talk about this, we do have the discussions with Mr. Hughes. But I believe it's important for the community to understand, because if we're off, if I'm off and if I'm not doing my job, because they hired me to do it, or they wanted me to do a job, they won't know if I'm just having conversations with Mr. Hughes. And I don't think there's anything that, like, do I have to withhold this statement and talk to Mr. Hughes and then come back and maybe say it again? I just, Jason brought it up.
No, I think you misinterpreted kind of my.
Sorry, I apologize if you want to clear, but please go on.
No,
clarify.
my point would be, if you have a concern about social emotional learning and what that looks like here in Heartland, I would encourage you to have a conversation with Mr. Hughes, like you said, like you want to have more in depth, like what's happening, what are they doing with all these things, how are these being presented? And then with that also, obviously, as we're board members, Mr. Hughes would then have that obligation to then explain to us, what are we doing? And like I talked to you on the phone about how perhaps, I don't know if it's next month or the following month, he could have our, I believe our elementary school, I was 5 or 6 months ago, something, I don't know when, presented on social emotional learning. So perhaps another school comes back. I'm not sure. I don't create the presentations. That's this guy's job. But that starts with the conversation, like you said just now, to him, and a follow-up I would, again, with Mr. Hughes, to say, what can you do to show me, meaning you, and the public, what it looks like. Because I think it's valid. I think if you have concerns and you feel that the people you resent have concerns, well, there's nothing to hide, so let's talk about what that is. So that's what I meant by
Thank
that.
you. It could put him to rest. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification.
So ends the board reports and requests. Item 2A, payment of invoices.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer, approves the financial report as of December 31st, 2022, and the payment of invoices totaling $1,808,209.70, and payroll obligations totaling $3,115,187.29.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Is there discussion? Hearing none, I will start in this bizarre order that we currently have now. Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Gilgleski?
Yay.
Mrs. Blondie?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yep.
I am also a yes. That motion carries. Item 2B, revised bylaw 0164.2.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the board president, adopts revised bylaw number 0164.2, special meetings as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, or motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Discussion.
I want to bring up the fact that doing so, moving from 2 people to 4 people for a majority for calling a special meeting, I think that's really in violation of parliamentary rules and giving a voice to the minority that may have dissenting opinions with the board. I think that's very dangerous. I am not for it. And I do not think that that would be a wise move. I don't know why this is such a priority bylaw to change. Has there been a rash of special sessions called, or what's the thinking behind this? I guess that's the question that I have.
Well, and I had a conversation there with Mr. Keller about this. So as we were looking back, Mr. Hughes and myself were looking back at policies that we've had. This is what adopted back in January of 20th of 2008. We're trying to put the wording in place more of what is consistent with what we do or how we act here in Heartland. And at board meetings, and again, I'm one vote, so I'm willing to hear other people talk. That would be great. How this puts it more in line with how we would make any decision. Like the current wording for just for the public is where to call a special meeting. It would be called by the president, or it used to say, or by any 2 members. And the change would be to suggest, as you said, Mr. Gilgleski, to be called by the president with majority. So in my opinion, wording it more towards a majority is more in line with how this board makes decisions as a whole. Like something doesn't pass if we don't have a majority. So for a member or 2 to want to call a meeting, and I'm not saying that member may not have something valid. I think that's true. Like we've added 2 discussion items tonight that to the agenda that I think have some validity to them. I think that's one thing, but to allow 2 members to simply call for a meeting and then to have it, I think oversteps the power of the 2 members. So
Can I ask when the last time that was done?
well, that's, yeah, I don't ever recall. Mr. Hughes, do you recall?
Yes, there's been times when I've had to call the board president and say a special meeting is needed because we have this report that has to be taken care of and signatures done. And sometimes it's just getting 4 members together. And I go to the board president and say, hey, I need to call this special meeting. We call a special meeting. We reach out to board members to see, can we get 4 in the room to have a meeting? That's a special meeting. And that's how it's done. Often, those special meetings are set at this table, and it's the majority saying, the board president saying, hey, guys, we need a special meeting. Is everybody okay with that? And we've never necessarily done a roll call. It's just, yeah, we're good, set the date. So there are times that I need a special meeting that I gotta call the president and say, I just need 4 people because this has to be done. And I know we have had it with financials in the past. We've had things that come up. So it's consistent with how we've done business. Board president can call a special meeting or the majority, and that's how we've done business, as long as I've been in Heartland.
But again, when is the last time that two people called a special meeting?
That's the point, never, that's not how we've operated.
Yeah.
So,
But
so this is
why the
what I'm on.
urgency in changing this bylaw? I'm just very concerned. You know, it's really fascinating preparing for this position, going through classes with Robert's Rules of Order and learning about parliamentary procedure. One of the things that Robert's Rules of Order does is provide a voice for the minority. And if there is a subject or if there is a concern by just two board members, I think they should have the right to call a special session. I don't think anyone here is going to abuse that privilege. I don't think anyone here is going to use it for some silly reason. I think it would be used judiciously and wisely.
I support what Glenn's saying. If I'm a minority, I don't want to be, now I'm going to be marked off the list to be able to bring something to special session or special meeting. So I agree with Glenn.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to add too, I just think that being able to call a meeting, there's not any decisions made with Robert's Rules majority, you're actually deciding something. So to make a decision to have a special meeting is similar to making a motion to have a discussion. So I kind of view those very similarly. And I concur that, we should keep it that two members can call. And again, since we don't have much history of this being abused, I don't see the merits.
We won't abuse it, I promise. I know that it seems like we're going to, and it's not the intent. The intent is to just protect the minority, whoever is the minority, could be you, or, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, I don't think, the intent is, like Mr. Hughes had mentioned, like, in general, he'd be the one that would say, hey, we need to have a special meeting to get some financial signatures on some papers or something along those lines. I don't ever, again, perhaps before my time, I don't ever recall a board, Mr. Hughes, maybe you can help me on this, did a board ever call for a special meeting without you needing something? Like, I don't, so if that's the case, if they be saying no, it makes sense to me that it would be the majority. It should change to the majority, because that's how we operate as a board. We operate as a board where the majority makes the decision when we vote on something. Like we're voting on policy, we're voting on a new hire tonight. We're gonna vote on the temperature controls. The majority needs to pass all of these. So to have an urgency for a special meeting, I think should require the majority of the board. It doesn't mean that a board member doesn't have a valid point. Like, for example, we've added 2 discussion items tonight that I think, like I said, have some validity to them, but adding a discussion item and having a whole special meeting, I think are 2 whole different things. That's just my opinion. So, I mean.
I guess we'll see how we vote.
I just don't find it an odd priority. I really do. I don't understand why now all of a sudden we're changing it from 2 to 4, and that does trouble me.
So if there's no more discussion. Okay, we're voting on the revised bylaws. That's item 2B 0164.2. Mr. Keller,
No.
Mr. Gogolewski,
No.
Ms. Blondell,
Nay.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
and myself, I vote yes.
Now we know why you did it.
Motion carries.
That's right there. Okay.
Item 2C, new hire.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Kaylee Hamilton for the 2022-23 school year at the Step 1A MA salary track, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
I second that.
There we go, motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Blondell. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have some discussion. So, for my information and, maybe, and it depends if, we can get some feedback. Who's doing the interviewing and this has nothing to do with the new hire. This is a good segue to what I want to ask. Who's doing the interviewing? Is there a list of questions used? And what is the hiring process? So can somebody, come to the meeting and share with us, give us kind of a rundown of how you guys handle that? I think the community might be interested in knowing how we hire our teachers and what criteria we use. If we use the Stonebridge International Research, so that's what I want to know. So if there's, at some point in time, I would like to know what the hiring process is.
I think the simple answer to that one is there's a committee at each building when there's an opening for a teacher. The principal sits down with staff, they gather resumes, they pull people in, they meet them, they ask them the questions that they have on their list of questions to ask on. Will this person fit in with our building? What's their background, their culture? Many of the teachers that are coming before the board have been long-term subs with us. We've gotten to know them for a year in many cases, some for less than a year, but they've been in long-term. For instance, Haley's been a long-term sub for us. And you go through that process, then the recommendation is to Scott Van Epps and I. We meet with the candidates. Scott checks their background, make sure everything's in order, that they have what they say they have, and then we basically hire them. There are many times that I have to do an emergency hire because we need a teacher. So I let the board know that I'm doing an emergency hire, and we bring them to the board. This is a formality. It's an opportunity for you as a board to say, hello, new teacher, it's great to have you, because we've done everything we have to do leading up to this. So do we use any particular hiring process, interview process, list of questions? No, we do it by each building and what's going to fit for their building.
Has anybody ever been trained by any organization on how to interview for teachers? Or is this just let's just trust that who's interviewing them understands what they're asking? And is that what we're doing? Or has anybody had any training on this?
I'd say that we get training every day and we're professionals and we understand the people that are in front of us and we ask the questions that we need to ask to ensure that they're going to fit in our system.
I'm just curious too with that sort of the lack of uniformity. Like, for example, when there's a vacancy on this board, there's a list of questions that are put together and each candidate is asked the same thing. I just wonder if that would ever become something that would be entertained in the hiring of teaching staff, or if we're going to allow each building to be fairly autonomous and just do it their own way.
I have to say that I think the building should be autonomous in this because the questions you ask a kindergarten teacher, a potential kindergarten teacher, would be very different than what you would ask, say, our new hire is going to teach high school English. So I think the questions should be different.
I would also like to add that I have the utmost confidence in Mr. Van Epps, Mr. Hughes, and our building principals to ask the right questions and find the right people for their buildings. So I would be hard pressed. Any more discussion?
I just want to make sure that nobody is taking this wrong. When I ask questions, I am catching up because I am up here because we need to understand how we hire our teachers and if they fit into our community as well. Yes, there's a culture in each school, absolutely. But we want to make sure, because we know that there's a lot of times that there's things that teachers do and say and can do and can't say that, maybe in different districts may fit better, or in this district they fit. I wanted to know how we understood how they fit into our district. That's what I was asking. Wasn't questioning anybody's credentials. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, with that, hearing none, Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Ms. Blondeel,
Yay.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Slayback,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
Myself vote yes. Congratulations, Ms. Haynes.
All right,
So I am very excited to introduce Kaylee to you all. Kaylee grew up in Howell. She has her bachelor's degree from Central, her master's in teaching from Eastern. She started the year with us as a student teacher, and through a couple different situations, we needed to pull her into a classroom. And so she has been long-term subbing in an English classroom, English 11, and now she's had some English 10 classes. And the potential this young lady has is outstanding, and I am so excited to see what her future holds.
Thank you. I am so happy to be at Heartland. Coming from Livingston County, I love this community, and I'm super excited to serve all of our students here. Thank you.
Congratulations. Item 2D, high school temperature controls.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the director of operations, approves bid package number 06H for the high school temperature controls as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Discussion, Mr. Hughes, did you want to speak to what this is?
I know that I've had some conversations with, I know Glenn and Greg and I talked today. I shared with you in front of you the 4 bid packages, and again, pointed to the letter in front of you. We had these 4 companies bid. We aren't at this point in time comfortable with the low bid. We are not comfortable with the high bid because of the number there for sure. So we didn't even go pursue that company. We're comfortable with Siemens because they currently run all of the control systems at the high school. Those systems have been operational for 20 years now. And the reason why we ended up going with Siemens is because they provided us an alternative way of doing this work that wouldn't necessarily cost the $1.5 million, that we would have a savings by them going through and replacing all the computer mechanisms and valves, and for half the price basically, as it's noted here. And we could get 10, 15 years out of that. I know the question was asked, well, if we approved the $1.5 million total replacement, what's the longevity on that? Well, the current system is 20 years, so that's a good thing. Talking to Matt, and Matt's here if we need him to come up and talk. I did ask him what is the warranty or the guarantee on the new system. It's 3 years, so that these other companies were 1 year. Their guarantee, Siemens at least guaranteed all the new components 3 years. That gets us 3 years down the road. But we feel like with all the cost overruns that we've seen with the bond, that because Siemens currently has all of their mechanisms in our building, they control our high school. It's 410,000 square feet. It's the largest building in the district. We're comfortable with Siemens. And so for them to be able to come in and do this and keep us moving forward for 10 years down the road or plus, then we at least, if in the future we need to add something to the bond, then we add it to the bond in the future. But this gives us a savings, and we feel very confident 10 plus years are going to come out of this for less than half the cost of the total bond. Now, the contract, if approved tonight, would be approving the 1.583, but the contract would be written that says, but we're selecting the alternative, and the alternative will cost this much. And we'll have our attorneys check that to make sure it says exactly what we want it to say, so that we have that savings guaranteed so we can move forward. So that's what this package is. I think I caught everything, and if I didn't, we got Matt here, can come up and clarify if you have questions beyond that.
I was going to move to amend the motion, but I think you already addressed it. I wanted to make sure that we had it on, let's say, a purchase order, because when it comes to building contracting, there's a lot of things that need to be dotted and T's crossed and all of that, to protect us. I think the choice is a very smart one, very prudent, but I think we don't have to amend that if, Chuck, what you're saying that wording that was in our board packet will be placed in the contractual agreement with Barton Mello, right? Okay.
Any other discussion?
You know, I just want to ask Matt, because we're gonna get 10 years out of it. It's 1.5 million for the full system to be completely new, as I understand it. We're paying for a partial. So in 10 years, are we gonna have to pay 1.5 million or whatever the inflationary number is at?
Who knows what that would be, right?
Right, but I mean, like,
Exactly.
are we just band-aiding something that we're gonna have to spend in 10 years, maybe less?
No, so right now, we went into the design as a full replacement, because that's when we designed the bond in 2019. That's what we thought we would need to do, given the component's age. It's a computer system. It was put in 2002, 2003. We know computers, fail over time. What we found is since 2019, which we couldn't predict 2022, obviously, the system is fully operational as we sit today. Siemens was actually out doing a site assessment last week, and all the components of the system are fully operational. So I have no reason, and they have no reason to believe that it would fail, say tomorrow, but I will preface this with, it's a mechanical component. Things fail, they just fail. And so we believe that it's a good option. We believe it's a financial responsibility to at least bring this forward to you guys as a viable option, that we don't necessarily have to do a full replacement of the entire system. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I know you don't have a magic ball to see what's gonna happen. It's just one of those things where you're like, is it more prudent to just spend the money now and have another 20 years and not worry about it in 10 years? Because, you're going to have to probably deal with something in 10 years. That's all I'm asking. I just don't know if that's been done.
Yeah,
assessment.
we may. The nice thing is like I said, as we sit today, every component is working. Within that number also, that option is a $10,000 allowance. So that if we start tearing into the system and we find things that aren't operational or things that broke just as part of doing construction, we can work on replacing those also.
Okay, so I trust your professionalism and you've done your due diligence. It's just a question.
As Mr. Hughes explained, I mean, the nice thing is the Siemens system has been a rock for that high school for the last 20 years. Even talking with the maintenance individual that maintains that system, he is a component of it. He likes it. He knows it, which is a good thing. And talking to Siemens, this was a viable option that was, met the budget, so.
And I think it's also important to note that as anything, any remodel, you remodel your house, right? You have this estimate of what's gonna cost, and then they get in there and they go, oh, here's a change order, right? Those things happen. So for us to say guarantee board it's gonna be this amount, I can't say that, as I never can, nor can Matt nor Bart Mallow. It's simply, we think this is gonna do it, and this is a good viable option, and it moves us forward, and it saves some money on the total cost of all the overruns we've seen with the bond.
Correct.
When would this work actually take place?
So this will probably take a few stages, because the big thing that we'll work with Barton Mallow and Siemens is to make sure that the high school stays in operation. Because we do run obviously school, and then we run summer programs and things like that. So we will work on replacing on second shift or on breaks or a majority of the summertime. So what we'll work on is the athletic schedule. We'll make sure we get the athletic side done and don't hinder any JD's events. And then we'll work our way through the academic way. It may take more than the summer. I will say that, just due to the sheer scope of this project. We're gonna work on the replacement, which was approved on the last or 2 meetings ago, on the 31 fan coils that we're gonna replace, and then the pool unit. So we're gonna start with those first, and then we'll work our way through the control system.
So there is a current schedule and there's an expectation of them to complete the work in a certain amount of time.
Correct. So that document that I think you referenced, we use an AIA contract for our contractors, and we do put all that scope in there so that it's black and white. And then we also put substantial, I was messed up that word, substantial completion dates within that contract that they have to meet.
Okay.
Yep.
Have they given any inkling toward any kind of issues that may arise from supplier issues, getting parts and electronics and things like that?
So right now, when we did our post-bid interview with all the contractors, they're saying that they can meet the deadlines for summer. Obviously, that can change given things going on in the world production supply issues.
Yeah.
But right now, their computer components are available.
With the savings, is there a plan to utilize that money for other projects that maybe got delayed or canceled due to some other budget overruns that we could apply some of that to?
Yep, so
It's kind of just a moving target at this point. You know, we are currently over budget on our bond, which means that yes, some things might have to be pulled off towards the end. But this does help reduce how much we would need to pull off towards the end. That makes sense.
Understanding as we get closer to the end, then we'll determine if there's any last minute items that we pull back into the bond.
Right. So, you know, this is kind of like our biggest season for construction. Once we get through this phase, we'll probably sit down again and review what we have left, which is not very much left major construction project wise. A lot of it's technology replacement, upgrade, whatnot. And then we'll start making some decisions on what we're going to move forward with.
Any more discussion? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Keller?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Moreno. Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Goldwasky?
Yay.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Claybon?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Myself also vote yes, that motion carries. Item 3A, revised bylaws, so new bylaws 0155 and 0160.3. Just so for the public to know, these items are for discussion are, here we go. They're board policy bylaws regarding committees and then committee meetings, and it's just specifically board committees and board committee meetings. So Mrs. Blondeel expressed some concern initially about, you know, when these meetings meet, are they decision-making? Are they breaking the Public's Open Meetings Act? So a lot of the wording, like Mr. Hughes and I, when we looked through, we said, well, we should clear this up so there's no concern on any board member's part about this. And again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the whole board, but when I looked at the initial revisions, I felt they still needed some tweaking as well. So I know I talked to Mr. Keller earlier today, and I made a number of notes on both of mine. By no means am I saying that these notes are the board's decision. These are me looking at it and saying, what can we do to clarify that as a committee, when we meet as a committee, whether it be the personnel student for finance or curriculum or building a site, what have you, those are simply informative meetings for the board. There's no voting taking place. Those committees don't make any action. So I'm open to describe what I did on these, but it's just starting off and kicking off point. I know I talked to Mrs. Blaylock as well. So if you want me to go first, I'm willing to, so you can read my chicken scratch, or if somebody else wants to jump in and have input.
I think that she just, and this just may have been an oversight, and so I don't know if we need to put it specifically in this policy, but we may want to consider it, is just making the number of committees, everyone's not equitable across the board. So that, you know, Glenn's not on 4, Cindy on 1, me on 1, you know, and allow it to be kind of evenly distributed, some based on role, so obviously treasurer on the finance committee and others, and then from there looking obviously at expertise that each board member brings forward.
Sure, I mean, do we want to discuss that first? Do we want to discuss the committee or the two policies? I'm open for either one. I
just don't think it's in either.
It's not in either. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's a little more work that needs to be done before we go into the discussion of this, because, you know, you handed us this, which is marked up, which is great, and I understand your intent. But this is different than what we reviewed and had comments on, so if it's okay, can we table this? Can I move to table this so that we can all have time to review this and maybe have some input, because I don't know if my input's gonna.
Well, I'd second that, you know.
I would hesitate to table, I mean, right now, these items are up for discussion, so to show transparency to the community, I would feel it'd be beneficial, like if we want to talk about what the purpose is for these committees, and we got a list that you can disregard mine. I brought mine because Mr. Keller thought it might be decent to, because I explained how like maybe we should omit some words, so it's clear as this policy is written that these committees are simply informational. So
Well-
I would, before we table anything, I'd be interested to hear what some other board members feel about the wording, because I know we all, well, again, I won't speak on behalf. I know the board members I spoke to felt that as it's written, it doesn't clearly indicate that our committees, our board, superintendent, administrative committees that we sit on are strictly informational. So before we go on table anything, I really am interested to hear what people have to say about some of the wording.
I'd like to comment on this. As a new board member, this has been the most mysterious portion of onboarding for this position. These committees, when do they meet? Who's involved in them? I have no idea. I have no idea when they happen. Are they large? Are they big? Are they held at night? Are they? It's just a big puzzle, a big mystery. And I really would like some clarification on that.
Mr. Hughes, do you want to speak to when a committee may meet?
Well, Mr. Costa, you asked me to provide the board members with the list of committees as well as the administrative committee outline on the backside, so there's front and back. You guys should all got that from me today at your table. So this is the process that was developed. We simply, as we said at the last meeting, redeveloped this because we were trying to meet Ms. Blondill's concerns about violating the Open Meetings Act so that she would feel more comfortable coming to the committees and not be in violation, because we had to make sure it was clear that the committees were never intended, at least not in my time that I've been the superintendent, nor when I used to come to the committees when Jan Zimmerman or Pete Carselli would ask me to come. Making decisions is simply informational for the board. So the intent is, if there's a time when there's an issue coming forward, like, let's use building and site as an example. Building and site did talk about the last bond package and how we weren't ready to bring the control system package forward. That would come after the new year. And so the notes reflect that. It's just letting the board know what our thoughts are. If we have a personnel committee issue, it's to let the board know that, hey, we're knee-deep in negotiations with X unit. This is our thought, and this is how we're approaching it, just so you're aware. It's just giving you information as we go about doing our business of running the school district. There is no set meeting time on any of these. They happen when they need to happen. For instance, the next one probably will be a finance meeting where, as we get ready to come to the board with an amendment of the budget, right? Because the budget was set in June for the new year. We have an amendment period. We'll be coming to the finance committee to say, here's our thoughts on the budget. Here's our thoughts on what we were going to present to the board at a board meeting on why we need to do these amendment issues. It's for that small group of people just to at least, it's kind of like our opportunity to kind of run through our thoughts, right? Like that's what it's for, so that we're not coming to the whole board and like we're totally in left field. It's just to give you that information. So there's never a set time on when these committees meet. They're just simply there for when there's a time that we feel, especially me as a superintendent, I gotta feel like I got 3 board members I can call together and run my thoughts by. That's really what it is. And it includes the people on this list. So that's what it is. And the intent, I think, when Chris and I were talking, Chris, and we were looking at this policy 0155 and 0168.3 is just, again, it's my wife says I can't say seriously, so because I say it too much, but to make sure that you as a board, because it came up that there was a concern about violating open meetings, that we made sure our language in our bylaws does not give the committee the right to do school business and make decisions, right? Because you don't want 3 of your board members to come to a committee saying, well, we made this decision and that decision. It's kind of like, you guys are gonna communicate with each other and you need to communicate with each other. But what you can't do is communicate via email or text in which you're discussing, making decisions, right? Because that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. You can't do that. You can share information, what we do in committee. You can share information via email with each other or text, but you can never engage in discussion that's gonna lead to a final decision. And that's what this is about. I know that's long-winded because I tend to be, so I hope that helps explain it.
So I know Ms. Bundy, you talked about tabling it or postponing. I'm not opposed to doing, or opposed to either of those, but I feel it important that since this is a concern, that we want the wording to be correct. Like, I don't want anybody out there, you would, or any other members concerned that the fact that these committees, because do you predict anybody meeting in the next month?
The only one I think is finance, so I think she's not there probably.
So I would be more apt to at least have a conversation right now, just so we're all at least going in the same direction, that the wording needs to be clear that our committees and our committee meetings, when we do meet, are informative. They're not decision-making. And I don't know how to do it. And I talked to Mr. Keller this afternoon, and I'm like, it's really wordy. Like, we could add things, we could take out things. It's still really wordy. I don't know the ultimate fix on it because I'm not a professional in writing board policy.
You could easily change everything and just say, listen, committees are non-decision making, simply informational only. If you're assigned, that's what your job is, to listen.
I think we need to do that because I think it'd be just.
I mean,
Yeah,
it could be one sentence.
It's just to do the where with, like, understanding, because that's what I was thinking too, like, can't we just do away with all of this wording and just say committees are formed for informational purposes only, and, to Megan's point, because I brought it up, Glenn's only on one committee, some people are on 3, can we add, maybe we can add some texture into, how we split out who, evenly.
The answer to that is yes. So to clarify though, maybe perhaps right now we can actually do this. So what did Mrs. Blondell say? Or what did you say? And she said that was a good idea.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, just scratch all of it.
Scratch all of it.
And then just basically say committees are formed. Committees are formed for information.
Committees are formed for informational sharing only.
For the staff or the administration to share.
Informational sharing with.
Yeah, but there's no decision-making authority in the committee.
Committees are formed for informational sharing with board members. And then, I'm sorry.
Well, you can say by or something, we have to put the administration and superintendent,
Sure.
like who's ever presenting, because we're not gonna be presenting in those meetings, we're gonna be presented to.
Administration. And then the last thing you said though was, or Mrs. Davies, what did you say?
I'm just,
You added no.
the committees are formed for informational, and do not have any decision-making authority,
And there you go.
and they will be distributed.
Assignments, appointments or assignments, how are we saying, appointments or assignments?
You don't have to have any decision making ability. And then maybe a new sentence, board assignments will be distributed.
Equally among.
Yeah. Yep, and we can do that, board assignments. So.
And part of the confusion is, you read this the way it's currently written, and you think that it's some sort of House Judiciary Committee that meets with, a televised broadcast.
It is.
It's whoa.
Yeah. So I think we've got that. So while we're on board with it, the next one, Mr. Keller and I talked, so now we're at 0168.3. So Mr. Keller had a great idea. If we left it as any board committee, whether standing or appointed ad hoc, which exercises governmental proprietary authority, makes decisions or actions against specific authorized boards, must comply with the Open Meetings Provisions Act, and then literally scratch out committees that are empowered, like get rid of everything else. So it ends with must comply with the Open Meetings Act. So for some reason, something were to change, we'd have to comply with the Open Meetings Act. So we literally scratch out everything from committees on down.
Can we also add in here that, as a board member, you can attend any committee meeting that even if you're not assigned to it? I'd be interested in some of the other committees, like just sitting in on
The
it once in a
only,
while.
the only issue with that is if 4 of us can't sit in that same room.
Okay, so we would have to, that would be a quorum, right?
So that would be an issue, then it would have to be, then you have the Open Meetings Act, so it's gotta be limited to 3. So I'm willing to talk to Glenn and get him on another one to make it balanced, like everybody then maybe have 2 to 3.
Curriculum would be nice.
But we can't have that, we cannot have 4. Am I speaking correctly, Mr. Hughes, on that?
Yeah.
If we,
Yeah, because I mean, I'm interested in the DI committee, I just point blank, I'm gonna say it, I wanna see what goes on in that committee. And I'm not on it.
okay, so to answer your first question, you can have 3 board members at a informational meeting.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to meet Open Meetings Act, it's informational. If a 4th shows up, now you didn't meet the Open Meetings Act, you didn't post the meeting, you didn't, right? So you can't do that.
Mhm.
So if we had a meeting and let's say finance, because you're on finance, and the 3 finance people, and then all of a sudden Greg walks in and says, oh, I'd like to learn, I'd have to cancel the meeting or ask Greg to leave, because now I can't do anything. So that's just what you have to do.
But at any time, if we did have a quorum, again, I wanna go to the DEI committee. Could we, if I made a request and said, hey, I want to attend, can we open it up?
You would have to ask one of those board members not to go.
But can we open it up? I mean, if there is a quorum, the only thing that says is if you have a quorum, you have to announce the meeting, you have to allow the attendance of the community. Maybe you're not making decisions, but if I wanted to attend a meeting and there were 4 people, it could be a quorum, but that's not breaking any law. If you have a quorum and you announce the meeting and you allow the community to attend, right? Then you can have a meeting like that.
I would say in that case, we might as well do committee of the whole. So if you're interested and everybody's interested, I might as well come and do the presentation of any thinking processes in front of the whole board.
Okay.
From the podium.
Perfect.
And that's a committee of the whole. So if it ever comes down to there's something that, hey, we all want to know about X, okay, I'll just do a presentation. Yeah, I mean, we can scrap committees in that way by just saying everything we do is for the whole, and I do presentation after
Well,
presentation.
I'm not suggesting scrap the committees. I think it's necessary because that is when you are able to vocalize, and make, affect change at the time, right? You want to know before it comes to the full board for a vote, so you can affect change. I'm not suggesting that at all. All I'm suggesting is if there's special circumstances, such as the DEI committee that I want to go to, maybe, maybe we can call a greater meeting and actually have a quorum and allow the community to actually see what we do in the DEI committee, because that has been something that, we don't know. We don't know anything that goes on in that, and that to me is very troubling, and I want to know what goes on. And I think that clearly other people do too.
All right, that's, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I think we can be, as a board too, uber communicative. Obviously, we all are professionals outside of this, and there does happen to be times where we miss a meeting, and if we just send a blanketed email out, that we are not attending that meeting, if someone has interest also in attending that meeting.
Good idea.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So jumping back real quick.
All right, can you just attend as a member of the public, not as acting board member?
These, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Hughes. This is for, yeah, it's a
But if you're
superintendent.
just listening,
It's a superintendent administrative committee. I think the purpose of it, again, like Mr. Hughes said, he could just do a committee of the whole. Which would then he just present the information to all of us, which in essence, kind of what, I'm just speaking on behalf of what has happened here. Like personally, just as far as like the curriculum committee, which I've seen have been on for a while. I know Mrs. Gregory comes to us and talks to us about the changes. There's myself and a couple other board members that happen to be there. Mr. Hughes is there, Mr. Minster's there, Mrs. Gregory goes through the changes for us, but then the same thing happens here to just a slightly lesser extent. Gregory gets up, she talks about the changes, we ask if there's questions. So, I mean, your idea of a committee of a whole would be there's simply be just a larger presentation here, correct? Is that, okay, I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it right.
Because I have the same interest in being on the curriculum committee, the way Mrs. Blondell wants to be in the DEI committee, so.
I'm willing, so I'm just gonna take notes real quick here, then I'll just reach out to you by phone call. So, Mr. Gogolewski, you're looking to be on curriculum. Mrs. Blondell, you're looking to be on DEI. Is there any other committees that you feel? Mr. Keller?
I'm looking to see what I'm in.
Currently you're on building and site and curriculum.
No,
So the goal is to get you on 2. And you're currently on 2, but if those 2 don't suit you, if you're more into finance, that sounds like a blast. Personnel and student services.
We have a great time in finance committee.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry, yeah, go numbers. So again, like, I don't think we have to make this reader, but like, again, I gotta know that Mr. Gogolewski, you're looking to be on curriculum instruction. Ms. Blondell, you're looking for DEI, and then the other one you're on would be up in the air, would be fine with whatever one you're not on. Like, if I threw you on another one, just. You're looking for, that's like that's.
Yeah, I'll stay, yeah, well,
Because I.
be on all of them, but, I'll take the, I'll take the.
So for sure you
The
need.
personnel and, no, I'll take the personnel. The one that's on, if you're gonna take me off of one,
First.
the student the personnel and student services, I think I prefer to stay on that.
So stay in personnel and looking to join. So I'm just gonna take notes and I'll call all of them.
Okay, perfect, thank you so much, Chris.
Mr. Gogolewski, did you have another inkling other than curriculum? But did you say DEI as well or no?
Yeah, no, DEI and curriculum, that's fine.
Those are the 2
That puts me on 2, that's fine.
I would be with you, yeah, I would.
So, all right, like I said, I'll look over and I'll move them all around. The goal will be to get everybody on 2. So.
Thank you for your consideration.
Do we need to address the meeting minutes as well in these committees? I know there were some comments in here about that it shall be the superintendent who reports these. Is that, can we make it as he could be as opposed to must be?
Mr. Kelly
To
referred
keep it open as a possibility for, whoever else might be chairing that specific committee.
So just to get for everybody else on the board, just to follow up here, I believe you're referring to the bottom, the very last statement says each board committee shall be convened by the superintendent, who shall report for the committee the minutes to all remaining board members. And then I know you and I had a discussion earlier about for a designee, I guess, and you and I kind of had a conversation about this.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think it wasn't clear whether it was a designee of the superintendent or a designee of the board. So that's kind of what I was looking to get clarification on.
Let me just clarify that Renee tends, and takes minutes of all those meetings, so me or my designee would be Renee, who reports out the minutes, so I think it's covered by 2 people there, either myself or Renee.
But I guess I'm asking the board if that's what we want to do. I know that's maybe what it is today. But is there a situation where one of the board members may be the chair of that committee and wants to assign the notes to someone else?
I would not do a chair, like I would not want to put the responsibility on a board member to come back and be crystal clear on what information was shared. I put that back on the gentleman who's getting paid to do it over here to my right. So I would say that it's his responsibility to make sure that we are all informed. That's my opinion. If somebody else up here disagrees, I feel that's why he gets paid a salary of a small portion of it. So.
Is there an approval of the committee meeting minutes before they're published?
Usually not.
I don't know. It's informative only, yeah.
So as a board member, if I have questions, or if there's conflict between what a fellow board member thought, or they thought or they heard in the committee meeting, how is that reconciled?
I would say that would start with phone call to Mr. Hughes. And if that doesn't get it, a phone call to whatever meeting you may be in, or for that matter, a follow-up phone call to any other board member to clarify, and have Mr. Hughes clarify here for us. But I would say the phone call would be to Mr. Hughes, since he's at every meeting. Is correct? Are you at every meeting? Okay.
Are there any other parties that are involved in these meetings at all?
Here's a
Other-
list. I might invite Scott because it's personnel related. I might invite Dave because, and Kate or Lawrence, if we're doing, or one of the building principals. It all depends. Yeah, I could have guest speaker, I could have guest people there.
Okay, yeah, just wondered, that's all.
So it sounds like again, we're just discussing. If Mr. Hughes and myself put together like another version of this 0155, which is this brief. Committees are informative, sharing with the board, administration, and no decision making. Can't read my writing, so hopefully somebody wrote that down. And then add on there also that final sentence that talks about how each board committee member shall be convened by the superintendent or designee shall report. Like if we slimmed it down to that and then brought it back at the next meeting to kind of talk it through more. So getting rid of essentially the middle, getting rid of all except the last. And then just also, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. The committee meetings themselves. We were going to leave the first sentence, will any board committee, whether standing or appointed or ad hoc, which exercises governmental proprietary authority, scratch out deliberating, and then have making decisions or taking action specifically authorized by the board must comply with open meetings provisions. And then there's the numbers, and then scratch out everything else. Is that what we're thinking?
Are you bringing that as an action the next time or another, or are you postponing discussion?
I think we should.
Clean it up,
I think we should clean it up and bring it back as another discussion item, just to make sure we're all clear on that's what we want. So we're gonna bring back those two items.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion on item 3A revised bylaws, 01555 and 0168.3? Okay.
Hey,
There is
Ryan.
Item 3B, this is the added discussion item to policy 0166 to modify policy 0166 to post a board packet prior to the meeting. Did I state that correctly, Mr. Keller? I just want to make sure that was the intent.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I think I added the time constraint as well, but
I think when it was released to us, I think it would be released to the public. I think that's what we agreed.
yeah, at least 2 days is fine, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking when it released that. it would
In
be
case there was
pushed
a
out to us.
delay in her posting versus us getting, so.
Yeah, no, right, like when we get it, you'd want it. So when is it posted? I don't even know.
48 hours, so we usually put it online, Renee, 48 hours prior to the meeting, correct?
48, so it goes up on
So it
Saturday.
would go up, no, 48 business, so, Thursday, we try to put it Thursday, but it can be Friday morning,
So essentially,
Monday,
almost.
boom.
So, but that is the agenda that they get walking in the door, like we want the full board, right? That's what we're talking
I think
about.
that, yeah, that's
Okay.
what we're talking about now.
Okay.
So now we should have discussion on what is that gonna look like?
I think for the financial components of it, the financial summary would be, like I said, there's a lot of context, and as I've been diving into it with Rachel, there's a lot of context that is, I'll be honest, I was like, why are these sports teams getting meals? Like, what is happening? And it's all money that they actually put in, but it's getting back out. And so I think that there's a financial summary page that we get, that Rachel gives us, and if we could take a look at that, I wonder if that would be useful in posting as a pertain, instead of the check registry. Because anything, for instance, that starts with the 6-2, there's money coming in external and then going out, and a lot of that context necessarily isn't there. I don't know what anyone's thoughts are on that, but there's it takes a deep dive.
I agree, because I feel like it would actually cause more grief for people to try to understand that for Rachel. I would want to talk to her, but yeah, it's a lot of information. It's got personal information, like, so if somebody has to pay child support, like, there's things on there that, they have to pay. So I agree with leaving all that detail off and just putting a summary completely.
I like the idea too, of the expenditures, this one single one that we have. I think that could show the public that the general fund, what are they spending, the athletic fund, what are they spending, the cafeteria fund, activities, and it all totals out. And then I would be comfortable with the public, and I know we already mentioned this, but for them to see these changes that we have, like the suggested changes.
Just as it's given to us.
Just as it's given to us. With the line crossed out, I think that would benefit them too, so that when they show up, they would have an idea of what is 0155.
And then as part of the board packet, I apologize, I feel like I'm talking a lot on this. I think that we should also include in the minutes, and I get that for Renee, she cannot capture every single thing that we're saying, but if we have discussion items on there, we might want to just include a blurb in our minutes that has discussion and the items discussed, just so we can have recollection of the actual items discussed versus not necessarily having that. So maybe just including that in the minutes as part of the board packet that we're just talking about changing.
I think so, kind of like Mr. Gogolewski earlier, how we modified the last minutes to add, we discussed policy number, where it's expired. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I think to add that specific, like what is the policy number we're talking about the discussion as well. Any other discussion on what that would look like? So, I mean, board packet, board policy 0166 agenda. It's a lot. So Chuck, I guess at this point, based on all the conversations we've had, you'll go back and add some of our suggestions to that. So to allow for the monthly financial expenditures and any suggested bylaws to be included. Is this correct?
What I've
I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire board.
I guess what I've heard you say, I mean, there are other things that come in board packets. So what I heard you say is to expand the board packet made available to the public by not just having the agenda, proposed agenda, but also having this financial summary sheet, policy revisions as they're presented to you whenever we're doing policy revisions. Now, keep in mind that when we do board policy revisions from Neola, we usually attach that yellow summary sheet for each policy. And why, now you guys haven't seen it, I get it, but you will down the road. When we do like multiple policies at a time, there'll be a summary sheet that's yellow specifically to say, whoa, these are the policies that are coming to us and most of them are usually just legal issues that have to be done. It's not us calling and saying, hey, let's change policy. It's just, you gotta do X, Y, and Z. So, I could, yeah. So I think what I'm hearing is policies, financials. I'm not sure, well, I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable giving the resume of new people out to people. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I don't think people need that. They just need to know you guys have gotten it, you've seen it. There's probably some other things that we wouldn't want to put in there, but if they're general items that are no big deal, I mean, I guess that's what I'm looking for direction.
Well, I for one am comfortable with the monthly expenditures, this page that shows the breakdown of where it's going, and policy. But beyond that, I think it would just cause more confusion to the public. Now, with that said, after our meeting, or maybe you tell me the correct date, Mr. Hughes, if a public member does have a question about our board packet, they can either FOIA or they can come in here and sit down with you and someone can walk them through it. Is that correct?
Anytime a public wants to see a board packet, all they have to just come in. I'd be happy to sit down with them. As I've said to people in the past and you as a board, context is everything. You throw stuff out there and people don't have any clue what it is. They do get, it just causes more issues than it's worth. So come in, sit down. We'd be more than happy. If it's a financial question, Rachel will sit down with you. If it's a personnel question, Scott will sit down with you. We can sit down with you together. So
Okay, I was gonna say, I just want to make sure that the public was aware of that. Just because we're providing the expenditure page, which breaks down where fund it's going from in our policies. Anything beyond that, obviously, like, not personal information. The public still, if they so deemed it, still has that access. It's just not something we're giving to them. 40 hours.
Yes, it would almost be probably easier to say we would post the board packet excluding X, Y, and Z.
Okay. As opposed to just including, can we just say,
Well, I guess my point is if there's any generalized items that would come forward, and I can't think of one right now off the top of my head. It's, almost 9 o'clock, I'm sorry. But if there's a generalized item that came forward that we would want to make public, I don't want to negate that. If it didn't have any personal, information in it or wasn't necessarily driven to one individual or anything like that. It just seems, we would also want to point that. That's why my recommendation to just have an exclusion list, I guess.
okay, so if you want to come up with an exclusion list, maybe.
And we gotta develop that over time.
But I think
Maybe
this,
that's not
And
something
it
we
might
just
be
do.
rolled, you might learn from the first board packet that we post, and then information might come forward, and we might have to add to it.
are we okay with coming back at the next meeting with adding to the public packet that, well, it's the board packet, but the public would have access. Are we okay right now just adding policy change in the monthly expenditure page? Is that something where you could just, so that way we can put it?
Are we doing the minutes?
Yeah, we do. Now, remember, the minutes are not adopted.
Right.
The minutes that would
We
be
should
in there
put a
have
draft
not
form, I
been
guess,
approved,
yeah.
so we would have to put something out there. that
Just some
says-
verb.
Oh, these are drafts.
Draft minute, like the
Draft
watermark.
minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
because both the agenda and the minutes are draft, they're proposed
Right.
until we vote on them here
Yep.
in the meeting. So we would need
They should
to
both have a
note that.
watermark.
Okay. If we're okay, we can move on to item 3C. This is a discussion on changing the timing of the board packet that each member receives each week to earlier in the week. So we can have discussion on item 3C.
Yeah, I brought that motion forward because I want at least another day or two to be able to review, because I have night meetings with work. Sometimes I can't get here to talk, what I mean? I just want a little more time. I don't see that would be too big of an issue to get 2 more days out of it. Maybe by
So we
Tuesday or
don't,
Wednesday.
so we don't have policy that covers that, but what if Renee and I worked on trying to get this out to you on Wednesday to start with?
Much
See if
better.
that works for you,
Okay.
and if we need to come back and talk more, we'll come talk more. How's that
I
sound?
can accept that. Yep, I can accept that.
Renee
Appreciate it very
and
much.
team and everybody else, anything we gotta do, we're gonna try to shoot for Wednesday before a board meeting. All right, see, they've been informed too.
Thank you.
There's no more discussion on that, or is there? Item 4A, future meetings, February 13th. Seems like we're right there already. That's 2023 at 6:30 PM, right here in the boardroom. March 13th, 2023, 6:30. Item 4B, informational items.
Can I just, to end informational items, please reach out to me and talk to me about the non-homestead if you're not sure about it, because it's really vital that all of the board is on the same page and moving that forward. If we're not, that's $5.5 million of funds that we don't get, even though it's owed to us, but the state says, too bad, so sad, go collect it. Please call me if you have any concerns.
So Chuck, the 5.5 is the total of the 18, or it's the delta between 18 and 1789 or whatever the.
I'll elaborate till I answer that.
That's the full 18, and again, that's an annual number. That's an annual number to our operating budget, not the 5 years in total. It's 5 million every year.
So if the public voted no, it would still be collecting the 17.89 mils?
No, we would be collecting 0 mils. We would be getting that much less from our foundation allowance from the state. The state assumes that you're collecting that full 18 mils when they allocate the $9,500 per people. And so they deduct that from that foundation allowance. And they expect us to collect that piece of it.
I think
That
that's
makes
why there's a verbiage in there that says increase so that we can get from 17.8 to 18. So it's kind of like a twofer.
Renew and increase. Renew the 18 mils or the 17.89 mils that's currently in existence and increase it to 18. That's because 18 is what we're expected to do.
Well, in previous board meetings, that I was on the other side of the table, we were talking about collecting the delta between the two, and it was about 30,000, if my memory is correct.
That's the difference between the 17.89 and the total 18.
That's what we're currently losing every year because we aren't able to levy that full 18 mils because of that rollback requirement.
And if it doesn't pass, come June, after June, we can't collect the 18 mils, so we lose the 5.5 million. So you can see the dilemma.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there are any other questions, we are adjourned.
Adrian,